Welcome back. I'm Anonymous, and this is Conspiracy Anonymous. Tonight we're diving into 3 disappearances that still defy explanation. 3 college students, each behind the wheel, each traveling along familiar roads, and each vanishing into the night. Their cars were found, their belongings untouched, but they themselves never reached the places they were headed. No witnesses, no answers, just empty roads and questions that stretch farther than anyone can follow. In 2004, 21-year-old nursing student Maura Murray vanished on a cold February night along a quiet New Hampshire road. A single car accident, a Saturn angled into a snowbank, the kind of scene that should have an ending attached to it. But when help arrived, Maura was already gone. She had told people she'd be away for a week, said there had been a death in the family, even though there hadn't. She packed some belongings, withdrew cash, and left campus behind. Not enough to call it a plan, just enough to suggest she needed distance from something she couldn't stay near. A neighbor stopped. He spoke with her. She appeared shaken, but not injured. He offered help. She declined. Within minutes, she vanished into the dark. The cold that night was unforgiving. Snowbanks lined the road. Thick woods pressed in from all sides. If she had run into the forest, logic says the ground would have kept a record. Footprints, broken branches, something. But the woods remained silent. Search dogs followed her scent not into the trees, but along the road, and then it stopped, as if she had stepped into something that carried her away. Some believe she panicked, afraid of police, and wandered into the wilderness where the cold eventually claimed her. It's the simplest answer. And yet, despite repeated searches over years, the land never returned so much as a fragment of her. Others believe she accepted a ride, maybe from someone who meant well, maybe from someone who didn't. On a road that quiet, it wouldn't have taken much. A passing car, a moment of trust, a decision made under stress with no time to reconsider. There are those who believe she meant to disappear, that the packed bags and withdrawn cash were the first steps toward a new life. But if that was the case, it was a strange kind of preparation. Her phone was left behind. Her favorite belongings sat neatly in her room, and no trace of her ever surfaced again. No records, no sightings, no proof that she became anyone else. The moment Maura stepped away from that car, the story stopped being hers alone. Other possibilities entered the frame, other people, other outcomes. Names were whispered, then forgotten. Leads surfaced, then dissolved, each one explaining part of the mystery and failing to explain the rest. Her family kept searching. They questioned timelines. They challenged conclusions. They refused to accept that someone could vanish so completely from such a small, ordinary place. And with every year that passed, the space where answers should be only grew wider. What remains is a stretch of road where nothing looks out of place, a crash that should have resolved itself, and a disappearance that didn't. Maura Murray didn't leave behind a clear story. She left behind a moment, a narrow window of time where something went wrong, where something changed, where something was missed. And until that moment is understood, she likely remains exactly where she's been since that night. Between the woods, between the road, between explanations. On a late night in 2008, 19-year-old college student Brandon Swanson called his parents for help after his car went off the road near Lind, Minnesota. To this day, he is still missing. The crash wasn't violent. The car wasn't badly damaged. Brandon wasn't injured. He called his parents and told them he was fine. He just needed help finding where he was. For nearly an hour, they stayed on the phone as he walked through the darkness. He described gravel roads, fences, fields. He said he could see lights in the distance and believed he was heading toward a nearby town. But every direction he chose took him further away. His parents drove out to meet him, staying on the line, calling his name into the night. At times they thought they heard him calling back. The distance between them never closed. Then, suddenly, Brandon said 2 words. Oh shit. The line went dead. It never rang again. Some believe Brandon fell into water. The area was riddled with ditches, streams, and the yellow Medicine River. In the dark, after drinking, it wouldn't have taken much. A misstep, a steep embankment, a place where sound disappears quickly. It's the most grounded explanation. And yet, extensive searches of the waterways turned up nothing. Others believe he was injured somewhere on land, that he fell into a culvert or collapsed in tall grass, unseen from the road, that his phone dropped away from him. But again, the searchers found no sign of him, no clothing, no remains, no phone. There are those who believe he was disoriented, walking in the wrong direction the entire time, that the town he thought he was approaching was never there, that the lights he saw were something else entirely. Farm equipment, reflections, a highway miles away. By the time he realized it, he may have been too far gone to recover. Some wonder if he encountered someone else that night, a passing vehicle, a landowner, someone who didn't want him there. There's no evidence of it, no witnesses, but the final words linger, leaving room for something unexpected to have entered the moment. The car was found the next day, not where Brandon thought it was. He had been wrong about his location from the very beginning. Each step he took carried him further into isolation. His parents never stopped listening to that call in their minds. The sound of his voice, the static, the sudden end, a conversation frozen in time, with no closing sentence. Brandon Swanson didn't vanish into thin air. He disappeared while reaching for help, while staying connected, while believing he was almost safe. And that's what makes it so unsettling. A voice on the line, lights in the distance, and a moment where everything changed. Somewhere between the phone call and the silence, Brandon Swanson was lost, and the night never gave him back. In August of 2013, 19-year-old college student Bryce Laspisa left Sierra College in Rockland, California, driving south toward his parents' home in Laguna Niguel. It was a familiar drive, one he should have completed in a matter of hours. Instead, it became the last known timeline of his life. Along the way, Bryce kept stopping. He sat in his car for hours at a time, at gas stations, at roadside pullouts, at rest areas. When his parents called, he told them he was fine, just tired. He said he would pull over and sleep. He said he was almost home. At 2 a.m. on August 30th, Bryce called his mother and said exactly that. He was too tired to drive and planned to rest. Surveillance footage later showed him driving toward Castaic Lake shortly afterward. That call was the last time anyone heard his voice. Later that morning, his beige Toyota Highlander was found at the bottom of a 25-foot embankment near the lake. The crash was violent. but survivable. The rear window had been broken from the inside. Inside the vehicle were his phone, his wallet, his laptop, everything someone would need to keep going, except Bryce himself. Bloodhounds traced his scent away from the crash site, across rough terrain, until it reached a nearby truck stop, and then it ended, as if he had stepped into motion and then out of reach. In the months before his disappearance, those closest to him noticed changes. Bryce had begun drinking heavily, using prescription stimulants more frequently. Pulling inward, he sent emotional messages that felt final without saying goodbye. He gave away personal belongings, broke off relationships abruptly, told his roommate he loved him, and thanked him for saving his soul. To some, these are signs of someone preparing to leave. To others, they're signs of someone losing their footing. In the days before he vanished, Bryce's erratic behavior escalated. His girlfriend took his car keys out of concern for his safety. He argued to get them back. A roadside assistance worker later found him sitting in his car for hours, unmoving, long after the problem was resolved. Police eventually checked on him and found him coherent, not intoxicated, not impaired, just sitting alone in silence. Everyone who knew him believed he would continue on, but as the story goes, he never did. Some believe Bryce walked away from the crash disoriented, injured, or driven by adrenaline, only for the environment to finish what the fall did not. Others believe he intended to disappear, that the long pauses, the goodbyes, and the waiting were not hesitation, but preparation. And some believe the crash itself was deliberate, an act meant to end something that didn't end the way he expected. Every explanation accounts only part of the story. None of them account for all of it. Search teams scoured the area. Cadaver dogs combed the terrain. Divers searched the lake. Nothing surfaced, no clothing, no remains, no trace beyond the place where his scent stopped. More than a decade later, his parents continue to search. They share his story, his face, the details that might still matter. A Taurus bull tattooed on his shoulder, Roman numerals etched into his skin, proof that he existed beyond a headline. Bryce Laspisa was there. He was noticed. People reached out and made sure he was all right. And yet, he disappeared. Not in a crash of violence or frenzy, but in the quiet moments no one noticed, the space where certainty fades, until those final movements are ever truly known. Bryce remains lost in the spaces only the night remembers. Today, Maura, Brandon, and Bryce still remain missing. Their stories eerily similar, each traveling alone, each behind the wheel, each disappearing along familiar roads in the night. Their cars were found, their belongings untouched, but they themselves were never seen again. There are no answers that fully explain their vanishings. No one knows what choice, what moment, what unseen hand shifted their paths forever. Some vanish in chaos, some in confusion, and some in that quiet, almost ordinary stretch of night where the world feels familiar and yet is not. So the next time you're driving on familiar roads, remember, the headlights might illuminate the asphalt ahead, but they don't show what could be waiting in the shadows. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and want to hear more haunting stories, please leave a like and subscribe. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so drop a comment below and share what you think. Until next time, I'm Anonymous, and this is Conspiracy Anonymous.